This is James Arnold Taylor, voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Welcome to a more civilized podcast. This is the podcast you're looking for. You may not go about your business. Stay here, listen, and then move along.
Welcome, dear listeners, cherished, beloved listeners, to this episode.
This is a serious episode.
This is a
very
serious
episode.
War will be waged. Friendships will be broken.
We're going to have a
Lives lost.
Lives will be lost.
cutting discussion. See what I did there?
Right.
Per our usual arrangement, I'm Chris.
I'm Kyler.
I'm Ross.
Still, he is! Oh, shoot.
I was say, you didn't leave with me with anyone.
Sorry, man. No, I was surprised.
I threw you all
That
for
one was my bad. I apologize to
man.
listeners and Ross.
That was hilarious.
Left out by using my own
Although
name.
it does go with my usual joke of like, I'm Ross. Yep, he still is,
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah, no,
Yeah, not this
there
time.
we go.
I appreciate the reaction to that.
Yeah. Okay, Ross, take the news away.
Yes.
Sorry, I apologize for the shenanigans. This is a serious episode.
That's right. Serious episode. News us.
Time to news the
Nope. Just
Yeah,
news.
not-
the newsy news.
Just news.
Nope, just the news.
Just news.
The newsiest news to ever news.
Nope.
Yeah.
Come on.
Don't let him get away with it, listeners.
Nope, I don't care. All right. So to start off, we have a little bit of a rumor that our local state paper has published, which I find it interesting that I found it there instead of on some other national level something. But there is a new rumor that says that they will be digitally altering Carrie Fisher's appearance slightly in the upcoming episode 9 release. The article says it will be just simple things to make sure she looks a little older as some time will have passed.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be anything major, but we felt it, good to get ahead of the people that just read the headline and then freak out.
Yeah. No,
So,
that's legit.
just stuff that'll
Not
make
that
sense.
any of those are our listeners, because our listeners are distinguished, intelligent. But
Yes.
so that you all can be certain
And so that
when you
all,
encounter those people,
that's right, you all can go out and make sure that the nerd rage
armed
is
with true
quelled.
knowledge.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, calm down.
Yep.
Get your Jedi robes in a twist.
Yeah. And I mean, this sort of thing makes sense because we do know there will be some time passing and you can't really have a person age that's already been filmed. So,
Yep.
without doing it digitally. So there we go. Next, we have some Galaxy's Edge rumors.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
A rumor that's already been
Wait, serious.
serious. Terrible things have been happening at the Disney park. Apparently, you can't say younglings at Galaxy's Edge because, terrible things happened the last time there was a large
To the
group of
only
younglings.
time that we've had the word younglings mentioned.
Yeah.
No, we heard it in episode 2.
Did we?
Yeah, the younglings when Yoda's teaching them that scene.
Do they call them younglings?
He does. Oh, no, he specifically refers to, he says the mind of a child, so he does say
Yeah.
child at one point. But he
Yeah.
does call them younglings. He says younglings gather round or something like that.
I don't know.
He does.
Okay, Stephen will fact check us.
Yep.
Validate me, Stephen.
Or have more fun and tell him he's wrong.
That's also possible.
That happens a lot less
Improbable.
often, let's be honest.
Improbable, but
Yeah.
possible. Wait, serious. Very improbable.
Very. So,
Most improbable.
Most improbable.
this was just a rumor, has actually already been debunked. It was not the case.
Can I read the response?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is so funny. In response to our request for comment, Disneyland says that cast members do not avoid using the word younglings. Quote, "Our cast members use that word daily in the new land, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, as part of their interaction with guests." End quote.
There you go.
There we go. That's very definitive.
I enjoyed when Kyler first gave this to us. It's like, yeah, basically it sounds like this was a family attending there that caught one of the cast members calling them kids and was like, oh, shouldn't you be saying younglings? And the cast member was like, oh, well,
We don't talk about it. Yeah,
we
maybe.
don't talk about that.
And I
here.
could see the
Don't want
cast member
association.
like
Just
in
ad-libbing,
character
yeah.
being like, "Oh, I didn't call them younglings. Oh, it's too painful a memory. I don't
Yeah.
use younglings." You
whatever.
know?
But so he's just like, yeah, so it's just Disney trying to distance themselves from child murder. But it turns out it wasn't true. And
Disney fully embraces
my response,
child
of
murder.
course, was
Yeah.
that. Yeah, So Disney's all for child murder.
Yeah.
You heard it here, folks.
Yep, Disney.
But don't tell
embracing
Disney we
child
said it
murder.
because we don't want to get sued.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. But here's something that's not a rumor that I read today.
Oh boy.
Apparently you are not allowed to wear, as an adult, you're not allowed to wear a full costume in the park.
You know?
This one also makes sense because obviously you can't have adults wandering around in costumes that are probably just as good or better, depending on.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the
what group you're
501st First Order Stormtroopers walking in there?
Yeah.
And,
The confusion of the adults is
yeah.
like, aren't you a staff member here? Like, why can't you help me? Yeah. That would be
Yeah, so
tricky.
like it makes sense. It's a bummer,
Yeah.
but it makes sense.
And I wonder if this might be something that they try and get around in the future, have some sort of identifying mark that wouldn't be noticeable to people just wandering in, but something that other cast members can go, oh, there's another cast member over there.
Well, I think it would just make more sense to just be like, oh, there, you've got a wristband or whatever.
Yeah. It's still
something like
hard
that.
to
Well,
see.
yeah, but if someone's wearing a Jedi robe, and covering that wristband, so...
But apparently, if you're an adorable little girl in a BB-8 costume, you're fine.
Yeah, I mean, special privileges for children, I guess.
Did you see that video?
That was a super adorable video.
It was super adorable.
Oh my gosh.
I'll show it to you later.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the Facebook group. Or it might have been
I
in
think
the
it might
first
have already
one.
been
Yeah,
there. Yeah,
go look in the
that's where I saw
Facebook
it.
group, listeners, if you haven't. There's a video of a little girl, she interacting. There's some stormtroopers stop her and just like, hold on, like,
Yeah.
I think this is the droid we're looking for. And she's like, no, I'm a little girl in a costume. And they're just like, I don't know, this seems suspicious.
Yeah.
We're going to take you to see Kylo Ren. So they take her past the photo line to get photos with Kylo Ren, and they take her all the way up to the front to meet Kylo Ren.
That is great.
Well, and then, of course, he gives her a couple lines like, oh, blah, 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 First Order, better, that sort of thing. And she does the same thing. I'm just a little girl
I'm just
in
a girl
costume.
in a costume.
And so they take a little picture, and then they continue to usher her on into the room where she can meet BB-8.
Yep.
And then the guy, as soon as the door opens, the guy that's kind of running the room or overseeing the room, it looks like he has a heart attack because he just, just like hands over his heart and
I
just
need
like,
to
I think
see
he's like on
this.
his
Yep.
knees at one point.
oh, man.
If it's not, I'm pretty sure it's in the Facebook group, but if it's not, we'll get
Okay.
it there.
Yeah, it's a super adorable. As soon as I saw it, I had to
No,
call
I
Carrie
haven't
in.
seen this at all. That sounds
Yeah.
great, though.
Yeah.
That's right up my alley. I love cute kids doing Star Wars
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
It's just
And they
great.
even let her step up and hug BB-8, and that was the part where it's just like, oh, there we go. That's
Yeah.
adorable.
Next, we have, there it is. So upcoming in August, we have the D23 Expo, which is Disney's convention just for all things Disney, right? Which of course now includes Marvel and Star Wars.
I'm so excited.
So there are reports that we're going to get some more Mandalorian content coming out of this D23. So hopefully it'll have, I think it's also reported that it'll have more footage. We're hoping for a trailer.
Yeah, because it's a Disney Plus panel, right? Yeah, so all things Disney Plus, but one of the highlights of Disney Plus right now is The Mandalorian, and so the rumor going around is that they're going to have maybe like an actual trailer for, us peasants who can't attend Star Wars Celebration.
This will be in August.
So
August
D23
So that's
is a couple
2.5
of days
months before Disney Plus goes up.
Yeah, so D23 is like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. So it's on the first day, August 23rd, and as Chris pointed out, it's like just over 2 months from the launch of Disney Plus. So that seems like a reasonable time to drop a trailer or something like that, like an official trailer, more than what we... Because the one we saw at Star Wars Celebration was kind of like a behind-the-scenes trailer thing, but to see an actual official trailer, that'd be... That'd be awesome.
And so is The Mandalorian Disney Plus's like flagship to adults? Is that what this is supposed to be?
I mean, it seems like it because we don't... I mean, Disney hasn't told us specifically anything new that's coming, right? They've said everything Disney that is like, all the classics, the Disney masterpieces, 101 Dalmatians, all the old cartoon movies, they're going there.
Yeah.
And then all the Disney Channel old stuff, which I'm actually excited for because that means like Kim Possible, Recess, which, oh man, I can't wait to show my kids Recess because that show, so clever.
Luck of the Irish, man.
That's funny because that's what Christina said. She's like, wait, all those dumb Disney Channel movies, Luck of the Irish. And
I'm amazed that anybody else even remembers that movie.
Oh, it's
the
so
only
bad.
reason I remember it is because Timothy Omenson plays the villain in it,
Yes.
and I adore Timothy Omenson.
I had no idea what you were talking about.
So it was on the Disney Channel again this year, like around St.
really?
Patrick's Day.
Oh.
Yeah. And so my wife showed the twins that, and so I was just like absorbing it passively, And then I like looked at the TV for something. I was like going out of the room to like get a drink or something, and I'm like, wait a minute, Timothy Omenson's in this? What?
Yeah.
Really? Oh my gosh! I'm like, well, okay, that does make the movie better.
When I first started Psych, I started watching that and was like, oh, hey, it's that dude from Luck of the Irish. Because I had just randomly seen it. I haven't even seen the whole movie through. I seen like the last basketball game or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was it. But I was just like, oh, yeah, I recognize him. He's pretty distinctive there. Carlton Lassiter. King Richard from Gallivant.
So, oh man,
one of my
he does
favorites
such
ever.
a good job. Oh my gosh.
He is delightful.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen Psych the Musical?
It's that episode, isn't it?
It's an hour length episode.
Yeah.
Where
I've seen that.
They did the musical. Yeah. That was the first time I heard him sing. Where I was just like, holy crap, Timothy Omundson can sing. Who knew?
Yep. But to answer Ross's question, as far as new material for Disney Plus, it's possible that I've missed stuff because I really only care about Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
But I think Mandalorian is the only new
As far
material
as I know,
that's
they've been talking about the Loki TV show for a while, but they haven't talked about that as a
Launch
available
title.
at launch.
Yeah.
Launch title.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot. There are some Marvel.
There's a whole bunch of Marvel shows going on there.
Yeah,
but
there's a
not-
whole bunch of
not at
Marvel
launch.
TV shows and things that are going to launch on, or well, not they will launch on Disney Plus. But as far as new things that Disney Plus is going to offer you on day one, as far as I know, Mandalorian is the only material, new material. So.
Because on the outlets that I commonly frequent, I haven't heard really any talk about Disney Plus other than The Mandalorian. So
Yeah.
So at
know,
the
it's
very
interesting.
least, it's all they've given us so far.
yeah.
That
But
we
I mean,
know
I would
of.
think with them trying to do a big launch of something, I would think they would be
I
trying to
would-
announce
yeah,
as
I'd
much as
wager
they
they'd have
could
more.
Yeah.
for our demographic.
But yeah, well, that's
Unless
true.
unless
New
they are
stuff.
still banking on kid stuff.
Well,
I
and
mean, that's
here's,
a strong draw, but
here's the thing. As far as new stuff, I don't think they have, like, for adults, I think The Mandalorian will be a draw enough to do it. And then for kids, the real appeal is, hey, parents, all those movies that you don't have, all those TV shows that you don't have that your kids want to watch, come get it here.
hey,
You
want a
know?
streaming service where you're not worried about your kids wandering into stuff they shouldn't be watching?
Disney
There you
Channel,
go.
there it is.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why I don't think there's a huge rush for new content
Well,
right now.
I would be surprised if they didn't push to get the Loki TV show available at launch.
And
Because that's
may
the one
be-
we've known about the longest. We've
Yeah.
known about that almost as long as The Mandalorian.
But
So it's
have we
absolutely
heard-
feasible
Oh,
that they
that's
could
true.
have it ready by then. But the dearth of any solid material regarding it does
Right.
make me skeptical.
And
That's a thing. they're
that's
trying to
exactly what I was
Yeah.
going to say. It may be there, but you would think then that we would have heard some footage about
Yeah.
it, maybe somewhere,
Or seen
you know.
some footage.
And I guess maybe we could hear. Maybe they have. Maybe they have it, and they're just saving it for D23, and they're
Yeah.
going to be like, "Hey, here's everything that's going to be new day
Hey,
one
surprise,
on Disney
Marvel
Plus."
nerds!
Yeah,
Because I mean, it is
Drop
weird for
your
them
wallets.
to have such
Yeah,
a
for
major
reals.
property and to not have announced anything for it for Marvel. You know?
Well, I mean, they've announced like six
But-
shows.
well, and if we didn't have Star Wars Celebration, we probably wouldn't have heard anything about the Mandalorian until D23.
We knew The Mandalorian was a thing that was being made before Star Wars Celebration
Yeah,
came
but
along.
but that's kind of
And
what
we
I'm
had the
saying with
initial
Loki.
we had the initial shot, the still image of the Mandalorian walking through that.
But that's
city.
what I'm saying. That's kind of where we're at with Loki right now. Is
Well,
we
but
know
we
it's
don't
a
have
thing
it.
that,
Yeah, we know it's a thing, but we don't have any stills of it.
Yeah.
We don't have any footage. We barely even have any rumors. We just know that Tom Hiddleston is there, and that's it. Could be them deliberately trying to keep things under wrap because maybe anything that they're going to share would have spoilers for Spider-Man: Homecoming. But if
well,
the
I
whole
think-
multiverse from the trailer thing ends up being real and not just Mysterio being like psych, but
Yeah, I don't know. I think you could successfully still talk about it. Those that are Marvel enough, or
Sure.
enough Marvel nerds would say multiverse. Everyone else would be like, oh yeah, because he disappeared in the last movie.
yeah, or well, they don't even need that much. Most of the people that are excited for that show are just going, Tom Hiddleston is Loki, I'm there. That's as far as the concern goes. They don't care how he's there. They don't care why.
Yeah.
They just want him. Whereas I'm sitting here like, I don't know if it's a Loki without all the character development I've seen in the movies. I'm not really that interested.
Anyway, so back to Star Wars.
Yeah. Anyway, but I could see that being a thing that they push to get ready for opening because there's a lot of people that want to see that.
yeah.
And I mean, it's like push to get that one ready when they've got like 5 more Marvel series announced for Disney Plus, so you can bring those in along the way. But that wasn't the first one announced, and it is definitely the big one.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know.
There we go.
We could go on for that at length, but that's not what this podcast is about.
This
Save it
podcast
for
is
our
about whatever we want to
D23
say.
speculation show.
Yeah.
We could talk about whatever we want on here. They're stuck listening. No, don't turn it off, please. Stop.
Okay, are we, is that all for the news then? Okay, let's get into this very serious episode.
Very.
That's right.
Oh, man, I
serious.
forgot. I keep forgetting.
Get your serious face on, gentlemen.
Just a sec.
So the question we are
Oh,
going
crap,
to...
I left it at home.
The question we are going to seek to answer today is, what is the best order to watch the Star Wars movies?
I like to phrase it, what is the proper order?
The proper order. Sure, yes.
It's more
We are
civilized.
more civilized. Yeah, that's better. What's the proper order, the proper viewing order for Star Wars?
So when we originally had this pitched to us on Facebook by Abinadai, I looked at that and I was like, well, how's that even going to be a topic? Like,
Because obviously, there's only one way.
well, not that, but it's just like, this is just going to be me saying, well, the proper viewing order is watching them in the order they were made. The end. So brace yourself for a lot of that. 'Cause that's basically 90% of what I've got to say here. If you anything like, okay, so I will go into detail real quick. This has been a long-standing opinion of mine that in any series of stories, the proper viewing / reading / experiencing order is the order in which they were made / written / manifested out of the ether. And that's that. Like you watch them in the order they were made, and that's all. And it started with this I remember being cognizant of this at a rather young age because of the Chronicles of Narnia. So of course, if you haven't read them because you're Ross, and that's about it. There are 7 volumes.
Rise, my minions.
There are 7 volumes in the Chronicles of Narnia. I began with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, then we got the little weird side story, The Horse and His Boy, and then we got back to that was the Temple of Doom excursion, and then we got back to the traditional children stumbling through something into Narnia narratives that were the bread and butter of the series from then on. And so we got Prince Caspian was the 3rd book, Voyage of the Dawn Treader was the 4th book, Silver Chair was the 5th book, and then, as I understand it, and this could be apocryphal, but I don't care, I'm not going to look it up, C.S. Lewis told his publisher that the next book, The Last Battle, would be the last battle. It would be the end of Narnia. Spoilers if you haven't read those, and the title didn't give it away. And his publisher apparently pushed him, was like, well, wait, if you're gonna give us the last battle, and this is gonna be, your Revelations analogy, since everything here is very analogous, then we got to have our beginning analogy. Where's our creation? Where's our Adam and Eve in the garden? And C.S. Lewis was initially hesitant. He's like, I don't really want to write that story. I wasn't planning on it, but his publisher really pushed for it, and so finally he was like, all right. If you really want a beginning to Narnia, I'll give you the beginning, and then I'll write the last one. So the 6th book of the 7 that was written was The Magician's Nephew, which was a flashback story that told us the origins of Narnia and all sorts of things that we have seen in Narnia. And then the 7th book jumps back to the ending, and we get the last battle. And I read these books out of my school library, my elementary school here, and the books that I was reading were pretty old, so they were numbered in the order they were made, with Magician's Nephew as the 6th book. And then when I asked for the Chronicles of Narnia for Christmas one year, I got a box set, same box set that Ross's wife has, and they number the Magician's Nephew as number 1, since chronologically it takes place first, instead of number 6. On my shelf, you will see that even though it has a number 1 on it, it is shelved in the 6th place. If you go to the Springville Library in Utah, you will also find that all of our copies of the Chronicles of Narnia are shelved in that order, because that is the right and proper order.
It should be noted that does not agree with the Dewey Decimal numbering on them.
We don't have Dewey Decimal numbering on them.
Oh, don't we?
Nope,
Oh.
just the author's last name, so I can do what I want. And that is what is right and proper. And so I was pretty young when this was going on. I was, reading Chronicles of Narnia for the 2nd time. I was 6 or 7, and I got these copies and I read them in the order they were numbered. I read Magician's Nephew first. I read them through and I went, well, that was weird, because you have this book that has all of these characters and this creation myth for Narnia. And then, there's the things that obviously got set up for the next book in the series, but then you get to Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and it's constantly referencing the history of Narnia, but none of the history that we saw in that book. And in fact, then Horse and His Boy, Prince Caspian, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, Silver Chair, none of them mention anything that happened in The Magician's Nephew. And then you get to the very last book, and all of a sudden it starts bringing those up again. It has references to King Frank, and it has references to all this and that, and it was just weird. I was like, what? Why would you read these in that order? That's annoying. It's like, it's pretty obvious that he came up with that stuff in the 6th place, and then that's why it's only referenced in the last book, because that was the only book written after that one, and he didn't have it before that. And that frustrated me enough that was my turning point at the age of 6 or 7 of just like, no, and I have never wavered from that rule. I tried a few times, been like, oh, well, maybe there is a better way. And every time I have always been like, nope. The proper order to read things or watch things or anything is always in the order they were made.
Yeah.
Including the Star Wars movies. And especially the Star Wars movies. Mm-hmm. Because, again, you have that same frustration of just like, I remember when the prequels started coming out and I was like, oh, does this mean I should now watch 1, 2, and 3 before I watch 4, 5, and 6? And then I went, no, that's silly, because then I go from flippy, spinny, awesome, tossy, throwy, bright nonsense, CGI nonsense, to 70s graphics. You know, it's like 70s special effects and like very impressive for the time, but it's a definite shift in tone and style and everything else. And it's just like, what happened here? For three more movies, and now even more so. And especially when the parts that matter to me, especially as a writer now, but even when I was 6 or 7, was just the feeling of the proper feeling of progression. Like, I can look at the original Star Wars movies and see how the prequels, despite being chronologically earlier, are building upon what we already had in the original trilogy. And so if I watch the prequels first, it feels disjointed and odd, because the first movies are building on the last 3 movies instead of the way around. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, you also get the sequel movies and the anthology movies that are building on what both of those have done. And so if you watch them in order, you have references, and then you drop all the references, and then you have them again. Only if you're slotting in Solo and Rogue One, so then you have references, you have even more references, but you got those referencing the late sequel movies that are going to come even later, and it's just a mess. I hate it. And so I'm always just like, order they were made. Everything makes sense when you will never, you can't, most series are not so thoroughly thought out in advance. There are exceptions that you will have references to things that come way, 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 way later built into very early things. Like, there are some rare exceptions like Futurama.
Wheel of Time,
even then, like, there's definitely there's the overarching plot points that he planned down in advance, but there's also the detail of the world building that got wildly out of hand, which is why the 6-volume series spiraled into 14 plus a prequel. And that's just constantly fleshing out more and more and more details. You know, he wasn't planning, he had the overarching things, and so he had a lot of references to what would come. It's not like he was just winging it. But there's a difference between that and then just incidental things, where it's like the Force in episode 4 is some mystic energy. Is it even described as energy in that one? I don't think it is.
No.
It's just,
not until Empire.
It's basically just a religion that allows you to influence the weak-minded and be really good at shooting and or blocking shots.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it wasn't until Empire Strikes Back comes along that it's like, hey, surprise, suckers! You can also move things with your mind. And it's like, oh, well, that's new. Okay, cool. And apparently, blink and you miss it. Literally, it allows you to jump really fast and high. And
yep.
Because none of Luke's training implies that the Force is allowing him to jump faster or further than he's just doing cool flips. Mm-hmm. But it's not until you actually get his battle with Vader that I didn't even catch that he was doing that until I started playing video games and was like, where did this go? But yeah, and then you had all these video games that built up what the Force could do, and that came into the prequels, and so all of a sudden it's like, oh, in the prequels you can do so many things with the Force, and it's the same thing that happens in the sequels. We're building on what came before, which is why Rey seems lopsidedly powerful. It's because, well, we're not just going to pretend that none of that did happen. You still want to see cool new Force things, so we got to put them in here somehow, and it makes more sense. I like it.
I am inclined to agree. May the Force be with you all always. Good night, everybody.
All right.
Hey, that's it. Welcome to our show. I typically, and this is, again, for me, the historian in me, things happen in whatever fictional universe you are. Whether they get referenced or not later on, doesn't matter. They still happened at that time, and you should consume it in chronological order.
Heathen!
Universe. I know.
Get the swords.
Now, all of the points that you made, I fully 100% agree with. Like, everything you're saying, yep. Mm-hmm. But for me, I still prefer to watch them in chronological order. Just because, and then maybe it's because it doesn't faze me as a historian, because there are lots of, like, historical things that are written at the same time or whatever that don't reference each other or don't reference everything, so I'm just like, whatever, so there's some stuff missing here, who cares?
But I think it's important to also understand that we grew up with them. So we got them in release order.
Right.
Because
and
that's
there's
all we
part
had.
of that. So
Well, technically, Kyler got 5 and 6. But
yeah, that's true.
But still. But again, 5 and 6 are kind of standalone apart from A New Hope. So
yeah, there's the typical trilogy pattern of we made a standalone and then we wrote 2 sequels to it.
yes, yeah. But see, I mean, that's the thing though, is that even though you do prefer to watch them in chronological order, you had them in the context of release order.
Yes, I did.
So,
and I would clarify too. This was something I discussed with my sister, because I discuss a lot of things with my sister. Is that at the very bare minimum, regardless of how you like to experience them or what orders you look at for watching them, if you're introducing someone to these for the first time, you should absolutely do so in the order they were made. And this specifically came from my sister. She was like, oh yeah, I've talked to a couple people that are just like, oh, I don't like Star Wars. And I was like, sinners. And she's like, well, no. And the thing is that as I got talking to them, they were all people who had come to it. Not all of them, obviously, but there were people who had come to it later, and whatever poor, misguided, foolish souls had introduced them to Star Wars had started them with The Phantom Menace, because chronologically that comes first. And nobody should ever be introduced to Star Wars via The Phantom Menace.
Yep.
Or Attack of the Clones. Or Rogue One, because those are horrible. And that's just not nice.
Would you start someone off on episode 3?
No.
Okay.
I'd start someone off where they began. Like, I'd start them off with episode 4. We've established this.
You just noticeably left that one out in your explanation just now.
That's because I wanted to
if
jump to Rogue One and just dig it there.
Yeah.
Just dig it there.
I got it. I felt the dig.
I know. Yeah.
So, as you've probably noticed by whatever the episode title ends up being, we're going to talk about the Machete order that was suggested.
We're gonna talk about a couple different orders, actually, because I was like, well, I've got nothing to say except this is how it should be, and you're all heathens if you don't agree.
I think Chris is taking such a religious offense to this.
I have felt this since I was a child.
Yeah.
Like first grade, we're talking here.
This is a core principle of Chris's being.
Yes, and I felt this before I ever even had an inkling of the notion that I would become a writer. And since then, I have become an editor and a writer, and so now all these things are even more deeply ingrained. Like, I'm validated in.
So, and this episode partly is from listener suggestions as well.
Yes, this was Abinadi Ayadis, I believe.
Yep.
But I did come up with some viewing orders just so that I'd have something to contribute.
So, Machete order
comes
from us from 2011, and I'm going to cut through his introduction to get to this release order versus episode order. He says there are 2 obvious options for watching the Star Wars saga. Release order: watch the films in the order they came out, recreating your experience with the films for someone new to them. That's what Chris is saying.
Yes.
Episode order: watch the films in the order George Lucas intends, starting with episode 1 and going straight through episode 6. That's my preferred order now, having seen them all. That's how I prefer to watch it.
Do you slot Solo and Rogue One into the middle of all that?
If my intent is to sit down and watch all the Star Wars movies, I do. But he says there are 2 critical flaws with both of these orders, unfortunately, that prevent either of them from being appropriate. I disagree with his assessment, but here we go. The problem with episode order, which is my order, is that it ruins one of the biggest twists in movie history, right? The Vader as Luke's father reveal. And it absolutely does, which is why I don't recommend episode order for first-timers, because you
Even though they all already know that reveal.
Yeah, but it's still so good in context. Even if you know it's coming, seeing, having that moment of pause, and then Vader's like, no, I am your father. Like,
We'll get into how good that can be for someone, even if they know that's coming in a later episode.
Yeah, it's so good. The other problem with episode order is that the prequels don't really have a story. They're just background for the real story, which is Luke and his new friends trying to defeat the Empire. Watching 3 films of backstory is boring if you've never seen the films they're background to.
Yep.
Which is
and
exactly
let's
what
also
Chris
be
was
clear,
saying.
they are poorly written. It's not even
Yeah.
just that they're superfluous, it's that they're bad.
And I would disagree with a little bit of his assessment in that I think the story being told in the prequels is a good story. It's just
the
so
overarching
poorly
plot,
told that it ruins the good story, the good elements of that
and it's
story.
also extremely juvenile. Like,
Yeah.
it's like that we were discussing with Avatar: The Last Airbender, where if you're introducing an adult to Avatar: The Last Airbender for the first time and they don't know what they're getting into, that first season in particular
Is gonna be rough.
It feels a little childish,
Yeah.
and it's a little disjointed, and that can be hard to stomach.
So, and he's going to, so unfortunately, Release Order also suffers from a problem. And this problem really only applies to the special editions, but that's all that we have really now, unless you've got your...
unless you're fortunate enough to have the originals.
So, created by A Single Shot. If you're watching the official releases and you view the original trilogy first, then at the end of episode 6, Luke looks over at his mentors, Ben Kenobi and Yoda, and suddenly they're joined by some random creepy-looking teenager who needs a haircut.
Mm-hmm.
And that is
However,
weird.
I would argue that first time I saw those movies, I didn't know who that dude between Obi-Wan and Yoda was anyway.
Because he didn't look enough like Sebastian Shaw.
Yeah.
to really
well,
understand
then
who
that's
he
the thing is the
Yes.
makeup version of
Sebastian Shaw normally didn't look enough like him made up as Darth Vader.
exactly.
That's
and
what I
so
meant,
there's
I'm
just
sorry.
this dude there, and my parents, I think it was my mother, had to point out. Well, obviously it was my mother because my dad hasn't seen those. My mother had to point out. I was like, "Oh, that's his dad," and I was like, "It's what?
Fun
Yeah.
story
How can you
from
tell?
Tyler's childhood. The old Force Ghost Anakin, that is Sebastian Shawn's Darth Vader makeup, kind of looks like my mom's father, my grandpa.
No, that's funny."
So as a kid watching that, I would always be like, "Oh, that's like grandpa. Oh, that's so cool."
I think my reaction, I didn't know the name to slot in here, but I think my reaction watching it was just like, "Oh, Yoda and Obi-Wan and Bob Hope? What is Bob Hope?" I didn't know the name, but I recognized the face.
Yeah, that's great. So Hayden Christensen in the ending of The Jedi, since he's not in any of the other films, turns an ending that should be celebratory into one that is... I think it is confusing, and more confusing with Hayden Christensen than with Sebastian Shaw. It is still confusing, you're right, because he does look pretty different, but I think it's less confusing.
It is more confusing with Hayden
It's
Christensen.
more confusing
Yes.
with Hayden. So, neither order is really ideal.
But
says
however, I would point
this
out
guy.
that that's two major overarching problems with episode order, and one small moment of a problem with
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No.
release order.
Absolutely. So he says, so what to do introducing Machete Order.
Yes, I've read about.
So how
this.
can you ensure that a viewing, I think he means a viewer, keeps the twist a surprise while introducing young Anakin before the end of Return of the Jedi? Simple, watch them in this order. Episode 4, Episode 5, Episode 2, Episode 3, Episode 6. You may notice Episode 1 is gone. I'll get to that in a second. I've dubbed it the Machete Order on the off chance it catches on because I'm a vain a-hole. Parentheses, update. It did.
Well done, sir. Yeah.
So, good job, dude.
Congratulations.
I'm not going to continue reading anymore till we get to the Episode 1 part because his thoughts on Episode 1 are hilarious. So I'm going to read some of those. But basically, Machete Order is this, that you watch Episode 4 and Episode 5. You get the really awesome reveal. Vader is Luke's father. Oh no, how is this possible that this bad guy is the father of Luke, the protagonist? You know, all the good fun emotions from that moment. And then you say, well, who is this Vader guy? And you go back as a long flashback, as it were, and watch Episodes 2 and Episode 3 to understand how Anakin Skywalker, who was a Jedi and a good star pilot and a friend of Obi-Wan Kenobi, how did we get from A to B, he's Darth Vader, most evil man in the galaxy? And so you watch 2 and 3 for that descent into darkness, then knowing how he has fallen and seeing his pitfalls and maybe even picking up on some of the temptations that are similar with Luke or whatever, you go into Episode 6 and see the final confrontation and Luke's temptation, and then Luke making different choices that Anakin should have made that result in Luke staying on the light side, and then Vader's redemption and all that good jazz. And ta-da, Machete Order. So, Episode 1, just because it's funny. Look, so why skip Episode 1? He says, look, I'm not going to sit here and bag on how crappy Episode 1 is. I'm not even going to try and act like Episode 2 is better or tell you Episode 1 ruined my childhood or anything like that. It didn't. It's just a movie that isn't very good. The reason to skip episode 1 isn't that bad, it's that it's isn't that it's bad, it's that it's irrelevant. And this was my argument in our Which is Worse episode. If you accept my suggestion that Star Wars, the saga is really about Luke's journey and his decision to accept his hero's burden, blah blah blah, you'll find that everything that happens in episode 1 is a distraction from that story. Seriously, think about it for a minute. Name as many things as you can that happen in episode 1 and actually help flesh out the story in any subsequent episode. I can only think of one thing, which I'll mention later. Every character established in episode 1 is either killed or removed before it ends. Darth Maul, Qui-Gon, Chancellor Valorum, unimportant. Newt Gunray, Watto. I would argue that Newt Gunray is slightly important in 2 and 3, but not really.
All right.
Or established better in a later episode. Mace Windu, Darth Sidious. Definitely.
Well, but also going back to see Watto doesn't make as much sense with that.
Yeah, we discussed this.
You
We
kinda-
already
yeah.
discussed this in that
Does it
episode.
ever matter that Palpatine had an apprentice before Dooku? Nope. Darth
Well,
Maul
unless you're
killed...
watching Clone Wars.
Well, that's true. But we're talking about the movies here. Just
Sure,
the movies.
sure.
Nope, Darth Maul is killed by the end of episode 1 and never referenced again. You may as well just start with the assumption that Dooku was the only apprentice.
I'm going to take a moment to rein you in here, though. We have already gone through, I think you literally read this in our
Nope.
Which is Better episode. Like,
Nope.
because this is sounding really familiar, and I have not read this official thing since.
I did not read this. All
Almost
my
since-
arguments were
yeah.
out of my head. Out of my own head.
Okay, well,
So-
you were very close to what
Yes.
he's saying here then.
Um,
Because we've been through this.
I do happen to agree with his episode 1, like why it's not super important, though.
Oh, yeah, most of it's not
yeah.
inaccurate.
Yeah.
But the official stance of a more civilized podcast is, in fact, that episode 2 is the worst movie.
It's the worst movie, but episode 1
And
is
is
more
almost
relevant.
almost equally irrelevant.
So,
depending on which
does
one
it
you
matter
decide to make
that
relevant.
Obi-Wan was being trained by Qui-Gon Ross? Nope. Obi-Wan is well into training Anakin at the start
I
of
was
episode
inserting
2.
that as a. We probably
Qui-Gon
don't
is
need to
completely
read all of
irrelevant.
this because we've already been through all
let's
of
see.
it.
Just see if there's
This is just
anything new.
Kyler trying
Sorry.
to win us over to his opinion,
I know,
his side
right?
again.
Again, yeah.
The
But with
opening
the
crawl
exact
of
same
episode
arguments,
2
so
I could
that's
just
why-
cut the whole thing out and we could
Yeah,
just talk over
maybe
him.
we should do that.
Maybe.
The opening crawl of episode 2 establishes everything you need to know about the prequels. A bunch
We've
of systems,
literally
lots of stuff, right?
already gone through
Okay,
this.
so yeah, what gets removed? No Jar Jar midichlorians, no Jake Lloyd, confusing Padme, Queen switcheroo, less confusing Master Apprentice relationships, no virgin birth. Okay, so episode 1, as far as this larger story goes, I think
It
can
also
be-
doesn't introduce the concept of the Chosen One anywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it loses that. It loses his mother. She's just a random
Yep.
nobody that
Was
we don't know
the-
why she's not around.
Was the Queen switching back and forth? Was that confusing? He says that's confusing there. I wasn't.
I wasn't
confused.
particularly confusing, no, but
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, we get it. So
Yeah,
defend
I was
Machete.
just trying
Order.
to see if there was anything else cleverly written.
yes. Would you like to, or would you like me to
Um,
attack Machete Order and then you can defend it?
I actually have a note I'd like to read from Carrie before we really get into the
Ooh,
weeds.
I'm intrigued.
Okay.
We've got an unexpected carry intervention.
That's right. So as we were preparing for this episode, I got asking Carrie, was like, "Yo, okay, so what do you think about viewing order?" And she hadn't heard of Machete Order, so I went over it real quick. These are her thoughts. Order for Star Wars watching. Different for 1, kids, 2, regular fan, and 3, total noobs. Kids need to watch it in release order because that's how we watch them. There's something to be said about watching a show in chronological order, and a noob should watch Return of the Jedi because they might get turned off because of you get turned off by starting out with whiny Luke in New Hope, and the prequels could turn off of a lot of people. Don't do Machete Order with an exclamation point. If you're gonna watch Star Wars, you're gonna love it and want more. So if you watch the good ones and ignore the bad ones, it's just gonna leave you wanting more Star Wars material. And then you'll cave and watch the bad ones, and it will leave a bad taste in your mouth, like how I came to watch the Christmas special.
Oh,
Don't
that
do that.
poor woman. So, yeah. So Machete Order, when I heard about Machete Order, I'm like, oh, a new way to consume one of my favorite things.
Sure.
I'm all on board. So Christina and I sat down and we watched the Machete Order, right? 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. And I was like, oh, well, that was a really interesting way to watch it. However, I think it would have not been as fulfilling if that were my first time watching Star Wars. And I want to be clear too, like if me, a Star Wars fan, is talking to Chris who's never seen Star Wars, I'm absolutely going to sit him down with episode 4 and be like, trust me, this is good, but it's going to get much better, right? And then I'd show him 5 and 6, and I would do release order because frankly they are the best. The original trilogy is the best, and you got to start with 4 if you're going to watch the original trilogy. I'm going to have to disagree with Carrie and be like,
Yeah.
hey, you've never seen any Star Wars. Let's show you Return of the Jedi.
I will say that was part of the discussion we had, that whiny Luke. I mean, it wasn't enough of a turnoff for any of us.
Yeah, well,
so
and
I
that's the
don't
thing.
think-
This whole franchise became the franchise and the classic and the amazing phenomenon it is based off of the strength of Episode 4.
Yeah.
It's strong enough to go for anyone.
Yeah.
And then, as somebody who has seen Star Wars literally countless times, I'm totally fine.
You can't count that.
I can't. I cannot. That is true. That's why I do history. Math is hard. I do prefer episode order, like chronological order, but that's also because I've seen it. I know what's happening. I know what references should be there, even if they're not referenced, you know. So my brain can just sort of plug those holes, and it makes my historian heart happy to just watch it in chronological order. So usually now, when I watch it, I do it in chronological order, but if and in fact, I did this when I lived in Michigan for grad school. There was a family whose their teenage son had seen Star Wars, their teenage daughter had not, and I'm like, but you're a nerd, you love Harry Potter, you love all these other nerdy things, really, you ought to give Star Wars a chance. And she was just being like resistant just for the heck of it. She's like, no, it's a boy thing, I don't really want, everybody, well, I know, right? I made the exact same face. I made the exact same face. I was like, no, it's not, there's plenty of good stuff. But she was just like, I don't know, it seems so popular, I don't want to just do it because it's the popular thing to do.
She wanted to be a hipster about it.
I guess. But I was like, no,
that's why
really,
I didn't pick up Harry Potter for $4. So.
Yeah. But I was like, you really ought to do this, and please, start with episode 4. That's absolutely where I recommended she start. She has finally watched the original trilogy. She's like, I can see why a lot of people like them. It's still not my favorite thing, but they were pretty good. So I'm like, that's better than you were.
We're gonna Clockwork Orange you in front of these movies until they are your favorite.
Exactly. Good callback to last episode.
Yeah.
So, Chris, go ahead and attack Machete Order.
Do you have any attacks you want to make first, Ross?
Because
I'll go
have
on.
some things. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is, I'm sure anything I make, you will completely encompass.
That's part of why I'm happy to give the floor to someone else first.
No, other than what you've already said, I can see there is some value in Machete Order, but again, I wouldn't do it for a first-timer.
It's not entirely okay, here's my problems with Machete. First off, narratively speaking, I could never do Machete Order because as a writer, that only works if you don't understand narrative flow. That's literally that's basically the equivalent of watching the first 2 acts of A New Hope. So we watch through to we've escaped the Death Star. Luke is sad because Obi-Wan has died. I only hope that when those plans are analyzed, we can find a weakness. And then we have an important flashback to show us how the Death Star plans were captured. And we watch all of Rogue One. And then we pick up Star Wars A New Hope again. Except, lengthwise that's slightly off. So say we only watch the portions of Rogue One that are actually relevant to the plot, which cuts us down to about 45 minutes. And then, and then just slot that into the middle of this movie. That wouldn't flow at all. That would make no sense. It's just now we're going to jump away for something completely different, completely throws off the 3-act structure we've got here and the flow of all of this. And again, I disagree that all of Star Wars is about Luke and da-da-da-da-da. No, that's the thing that the prequels did, is they took this story that we all thought was Luke's story and made it into Anakin Skywalker's story. And that's one of the few things that the prequels did well. When I reached the end of the third one and realized, oh my gosh, this all works as a big narrative arc for Anakin Skywalker, it revealed something I hadn't known about the originals. And I thought that was neat. You lose that if you watch them in Machete Order. And yeah. And so that's my number 1. Number 2, you still have the problem of referential stuff that doesn't make much sense, that's jumping around, that's on all of that. All the points that I made for going out of order being a problem before. And let's see, what else was there? You have anything? You guys can jump in here because I'm struggling to remember what other points I had.
I was going to say, too, it's clear that the guy who came up with Machete Order, whose name I think
Hector Machete
is of the Lancaster Machetes.
Yes.
No, Rod Hilton, I believe, is his name. It is clear to me that he is a Star Wars fan like all of us that has seen it all before and has, that he's playing with a full deck of cards, so he knows what references should be there even if they're not, and is doing exactly like I said earlier of just, your brain is just going to plug it in anyway because it is tucked away in there, so you know what should be here.
Yeah.
And so in that case, Machete Order does work because, well, it's okay to pause for a minute and go watch these,
Sure.
but where he's proposing this as a way to introduce somebody to Star Wars,
absolutely not. Never.
I really don't think it works because exactly what you're saying, the narrative flow, it is weird.
I also just remembered one of my other concerns. His assumption is that introducing someone new to this, so we're taking someone new to this, and we're assuming that if we jump back after the revelation that Vader is Luke's father, and we assume that they just buy that because probably they already know, unless you're doing what I did and creating someone who doesn't know. When you jump back, this is to flesh out Vader so we understand his motivations and everything. That's assuming that jumping back from number 5 to 2 and 3, and or 1 if you want to include that, is not going to utterly ruin your enjoyment of Darth Vader and number 6. Like, you got to remember, these are not well-made movies. Like, overall, there's a lot to love. There is a lot of quality material in there. But as far as the writing goes, as far as the direction and acting goes, there is a lot to not be happy with here. And so slotting them into the middle of an almost perfect trilogy of movies is really a bad move. Like, so that, well, I was going to give another analogy, but I'm just going to say that, the New Hope and Rogue One analogy still applies. Like, that's just not a smart thing.
Yeah.
My only other thoughts on why not Machete Order for a first timer is just that I've always felt strongly that if you love something or you want to get the full
You set
experience...
it free?
No.
Oh.
If you...
What have you been doing? All the rest of us keep the things we love.
Isn't that like the dumb old sayings, like, if you love something, set it free?
Yes,
or whatever?
yes.
And it's stupid, right?
I was
I'm not
mocking
wrong?
you.
Okay,
So that's
okay.
why I was mocking it. I was like, no, what have you been doing? We're all keeping the things we love.
Exactly. Contagious in my basement.
That's right.
If you truly want to...
Remind me to feed Liam Neeson later.
Yes. Please, we all know if you had Liam Neeson in a cage in your basement, you'd be dead now.
Yep. I'd be in a cage in his basement. Sorry, Ross.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
I'm a little sorry. Okay.
You did that on purpose.
See, this is
right
the
for
problem
you.
of me sitting in the middle. I can't see when you're talking because I'm looking at him.
Okay.
No, okay. So if you love something and you are okay, this is also going to sound elitist.
Just out with it.
Ross, they listen to me all the time. This is,
Yeah,
don't
this
worry
is nothing
yourself
new.
at all.
I just strongly believe that if you're going to get into something, you need to have the full experience.
Mm-hmm.
You need to embrace the bad with the good, but you're still able to recognize that it is bad, right? So even though episode 1 or 2 is worse, doesn't matter which is worse, it is still a part of the DNA of
Agreed.
the fandom.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
and the jumping to the sequel series without the prequels is gonna leave some things being kind of odd. The sequel series relies on your knowledge of the prophecy of the Chosen One, and that balance would be brought to the Force and has been brought to the Force. Like, they're pretty subtle. You can still enjoy them without that, but it is part of what they assume you probably know about.
Yeah.
So it's it's useful to have the prequels there before you go on to the sequels. There's definitely a case to be made for if you're introducing someone new to it, you just skip over the prequels and go straight to the sequels, but you don't have to.
Yeah. Well,
I would personally just take the approach of, here's the originals, aren't they great? Next comes the prequels. Don't get your expectations up. Just lower them. That's not low enough. Push it down.
There you go.
There we
There
go.
you
It's
go.
not quite good enough, but it'll do for
Yep.
now.
Yeah.
You're still going to be disappointed by this.
So, anything else? Any other major complaints? Because I
Machete?
agree with what's been said. It's flawed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's most of what I got.
Okay. So he did an update to this. I'm not sure if it's in this original article or not, but he updates. Aha! So he did an update where he gets asked about, well, what about these sequels that are coming out? What about these standalone movies that are coming out? And he basically says Machete Order as stated, and then new trilogy in release order. So it would go 4, 5, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. With Rogue One and Solo as appendices that are just sort of, consider them in the back of the book. Extra information, it's there if you want it, and go for it if you wish.
I will say that where I argue for watching them in viewing order, but the anthology movies are effectively standalones, and they are entirely superfluous. Like, you don't need these at all for the others.
Because I was going to ask you, does your release order include these? So should you watch episode 7, then Rogue One, then
I would
8,
not
and
interrupt
Solo?
7 and 8 to, like, I would not interrupt a story in progress to go watch something extraneous.
Okay.
So that I will make an exception for that, because they, like, watch 7, 8, and 9 in that order, obviously. And then the anthology movies, like, just slot them in wherever.
Yeah.
That's what they're made to do, and they are both very much built around, these are not stories that need to be told, that anyone needs to know. They are superfluous. They're not fleshing out or changing anything from the original movies.
Yeah.
And I can't think of anything really, like, you don't need to know anything from the prequels
For either of
for
those.
either of them.
No,
Yeah.
like they're chock full of references,
But you
nothing
don't need to know the
important.
references to understand
Well,
the
and
story.
even... Yeah, I guess that's true. I was thinking...
Because even Darth Maul at the end of Solo, if you had never seen the prequels, you would just be like, whoa, okay, so this is an evil Force user.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? If you never had seen Darth Maul before, that would be your reaction. Because you'd have a whole movie of people going like, boy, you don't know who I work for. Like, he's deadly
Yeah.
serious.
It
He'll
still wouldn't
mess
be that
you
good
up.
of a payoff, but yeah.
No,
it'd be-
but you know what I mean? You
You'd
don't
have
need
some-
to know
you'd be
who
able to
Darth
piece
Maul
together
is.
something,
Yeah.
yeah.
So when you see him like pull his lightsaber or whatever, you'd be
well,
like,
except
oh,
if you're watching that as a
okay.
standalone with no knowledge of any of the others, you don't know what the Force is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And you don't know what that thing was he was pointing at, or that red thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You just know that he's telekinetic.
Yep.
maybe.
Which is still
or
kinda
someone
scary.
threw something at him
Threw it at him.
from the screen. Like,
From off screen, yeah.
Has a guy that just stands
So-
there.
See,
For
for me,
me-
that's actually one of the it's not a weakness of the anthology movies per se, but I do think that's part of the reason why Solo suffered, is because these movies are superfluous. Everybody
Yeah.
knows that these movies don't matter, quote unquote, per se. Like, they aren't, like, Rogue One did a better job than Solo in the I can't believe I'm going to say this, but we're going to try and tell a story of relevance and that actually matters. Like, in that this is a war story where we've got our own original characters. We're not just fleshing, and we are just fleshing out a couple of paragraphs from the first movie's
Yeah.
crawl. But, you know, Solo is just, here's some extraneous material about one of these, or a couple of these characters. It's utterly irrelevant. It doesn't really add to them in any way at all. And I think people know that. I think people knew that going into Solo. There's a ton of people looking at that going, I don't care about that. Why would I care about that? At least Rogue One had the pull of, whoa, looks like a war movie. That looks cool.
Yeah.
Whereas Solo is just like, I really, it almost doesn't matter what you do with this. I don't care.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that with the anthology movies, any standalones they make in the future, they take more of an approach of, let's find an interesting story to tell about an interesting, preferably somewhat original character, and worry about where it slots into the universe later. Like, make sure we've got a good story, tell that story, rather than just, what character can we bank on next? Like, what character can we give the nerds more of?
And I agree. For me, as far as, because again, chronological order, episode order, right? Any additional movies or anthologies that they make, doesn't matter to me. Slot them in where they go.
Because they
Right.
have episodes. Yeah.
Because, yeah, you know, so for me, the episode order is 1, 2, 3, Solo, Rogue One, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
And that's easy. But again, not for first-time users. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is... I'm deep into the Star Wars drugs, so I can handle it. But, you know, if you're trying to hook somebody, again, I have to agree with Chris. For first-time users, go release
okay, so
order.
let's hypothetically say they give us a Knights of the Old Republic movie. Are you going to slot that in first, even though it is so far removed from all the others that it doesn't matter?
Yep, it would. Knights of the Old Republic would then precede Episode 1. And whatever movie's set in that, because again, chronological order. These things had to have happened first, whether they're referenced or later or not, doesn't matter. They still have to go first.
Unless we find out that time is cyclical in the Star Wars universe. Star Wars Wheel of Time crossover.
That would be interesting.
I would so be there.
Just for the hope that someday you might become a Jedi?
Yes.
Be reincarnated as a
Yes.
Jedi? I'm right there with you, actually. I accept. But, yeah, you know, and so things... well, actually, what you said, though, about, you know, tell an interesting story with a character who hopefully is not, you know, just... Oh, this person was on screen for 5 seconds. Let's make a movie about them, you know?
Yeah.
I hope that's what we're going to see with The Mandalorian.
Absolutely.
Right? Is that we have as far as we know, a new character that is not anywhere
Well,
seen before.
That's I even have that hope for the Cassian series that they're going to do, because it's like, okay, we know this has to be a prequel. We all know how Cassian ends, but that's the thing. Any story they're going to tell is going to be significantly enough removed from the events of Rogue One, because there's so little there that you have no choice. You either have to flesh him out and make him a character in his own right, separate from what's already been made, or you're going to have a bad story. Like, those are your options, basically. You can't do what they did with Solo of just, hey, you all know who Han is. We're not actually going to mess with that in the slightest or give him any character development or change anything at all. We're just going to show you how he got his stuff. And which is weak storytelling. And that's what I want to see less of. And so even if you are using the characters that we've already seen, if you're doing something interesting and depthful with them, great.
And that's like, that's what I said. I'm really hoping Mandalorian, and I think it will probably go that way, because it doesn't seem like it's going to be relying on any previously made characters. At least, they may show up, maybe,
absolutely,
but it's not going to be reliant on them. And so what we're going to get is, we have to tell a good story to stand on its own, which
we have
awesome.
to approach things like we approach everything else.
Exactly. And I'm a little bit more worried about Cassian, that it may follow in Solo's footsteps, where it's like, hey, you like Han Solo, right? Let's just give you the exact same character, only younger, but he's still the same.
Yes.
I'm worried a little bit that they may do that with Cassian, but I hope not. I hope that they have the sense to be like, hey, let's step him back and ungrow him by however far we're going back in time, so that he can grow and become the person we see in Rogue One. I hope that they go there.
The main reason I would think they do is just because, and this isn't even me insulting Rogue One's writing, it's just that there's not much there in Rogue One.
Yeah.
Rogue One they were trying to do 5 character arcs, and all of their character development basically finished with 50 minutes left in the movie. Like, there's not a lot of fleshing out with anything going. And so you can't really rely on, you already know and love this character that heavily. And I would be very surprised. Well, I wouldn't be surprised, but I would put, at least a small amount of money on that actually fleshing a good way.
Also, I'm just saying, please give us, no, we did K2SO.
They have confirmed the K2SO.
Yeah. So I'm way excited for that we get to see more Alan Tudyk.
Always happy for more Alan
Tudyk. I will never not say yes to more Alan Tudyk in my life. So
So you're gonna go see Disney's live action Aladdin then?
Oh, probably not. Well, I won't go see it in
Alan
theaters.
Tudyk's in it.
I won't go see it in theaters. I'll probably
he plays
wait till my wife inevitably buys it.
So does that mean he's essentially reduced to the same character he played in Moana?
Correct.
No, because Iago does actually speak. He's not like the full-on Gilbert Godfrey intelligent parrot, but he is a more intelligent than average parrot who is capable of repeating words and such. And I am intrigued. It's got Alan Tudyk, I gotta see it, and it's not getting the worst reviews.
That's more than a lot of Disney's recent stuff can say.
There's a lot of good stuff being said about it that I'm impressed by. So
yeah.
Anyway, so there's your detour into
save it for our Aladdin show, Chris.
Oh yeah, our Aladdin Star Wars show.
Oh,
that'll be about 10 years from now once we run out of all the other content.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, I think we're all in agreement, right? If you're introducing Star Wars to someone who's never seen it, you got to do release order, right?
Yes.
Then for personal viewing, Chris,
always
you're going
release
order. Ross, when you sit down, you've got a week of nothing to do but watch Star Wars movies.
Well, for personal viewing, there's release order if you're actually going to the trouble of watching a bunch of them. More often than not, when I watch Star Wars movies these days, it's what movie do I feel like watching?
Yeah,
right.
That's usually what I'm doing.
I know. That's why I'm saying, Ross,
But if you were to binge it,
you've got a week to do. You broke your legs. You're stuck on your couch for a week because the break wasn't that severe, apparently. You're on your couch for a week.
I can hobble to the TV with one leg.
You're going to watch all the Star Wars movies. How do you do it?
I think I would actually go episode order.
Heathen.
But I feel like in the past I have flip-flopped on that. Sometimes I have gone episode order. I'm sorry. I've gone release order and episode order.
Yeah. I've done both as well. Like, I prefer episode order just because that's how my OCD works, but I have probably actually about evenly done both when I'm doing it at home. There have been times where I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch all of Star Wars. And for me, that includes all of the Clone Wars, all of Rebels, and that is like a 3 to 4 month project for me.
Yeah.
And in those cases, I also do it in episode order, in chronological order, just because it's just crazy.
I think in that case, when you're doing like the TV series as well, I think.
Yeah.
That's a fun project, by the way, listeners. If you ever have a lot of time on your hands and you want to watch all of Star Wars, do it. It's so good.
But I will say, though, I think I am much more likely to just pick and choose.
Yeah.
Recently. Yeah. Again, like we were talking a couple episodes ago, how I just randomly just did Solo because that's the one I haven't seen.
Yeah.
The
and
most
I
or
also, you know, now that I'm, you know, we're all older and we don't have as much free time to.
Yeah.
I know, right? It's sad.
Yeah.
And so I did that too. Like the other day, I was like, you know, I haven't seen Return of the Jedi in a while, so I watched that. And then, believe it or not, listeners, just sit down, make sure you're seated. Everyone ready? I actually considered watching episode 8. That's a big step for me, though.
Congratulations.
I was sitting there looking at my Star Wars movies, and I'm like,
okay?
My heart.
Do we need Carrie in here to give you mouth to mouth?
And I was like, I'm kind of thinking about watching episode 8. And I was like standing there looking at it, and I'm like, you know, I've only seen that like 3 times. For the sake of my own Star Wars knowledge, I should probably watch it a couple more times just to get little details down. And I was like, I'll watch one of my foreign films instead.
I will say, yeah, we discussed earlier with the anthology films, that is a consistent thing of mine. So my official rule 1 is that you watch them or read them in the order that they were created. However, rule 2, which can sometimes supersede rule 1, is you don't interrupt stories for extraneous stories. So you don't interrupt the quote-unquote Skywalker saga in order to watch extraneous extra movies. If you're reading The Wheel of Time, you do not read the prequel novel at the point where it was written, because that's just putting this random side story that is of no relevance into the middle of a 14-book series. Don't do that. Like, that's silly. There's no reason to do that to yourself. And that applies to basically anything I ever read. It's like, you don't slot in extra stories in the middle of an ongoing story.
Yeah. But
then once you're through that story, generally you're going to want to read those in the order they came out. Like, I would recommend watching Rogue One before you watch Solo, so on with whatever comes out next. But so I've got some other order ideas that I brought to the table. You might have heard some of these somewhere online. You might not, because most of these I literally just made up off the top of my head when I was thinking of what are some orders that we could watch the Star Wars movies that would make even the remotest possible sense.
Reverse episode order.
That could be fun. So, first off, we have the order of preference. You start, of course, with the one you like least and work to the one you like best, because if to do otherwise would just be depressing.
That's it. That's how I'm going to watch them next.
Yeah. See, I'm not going to enforce the heresies on you. You can choose whatever order you like them. I won't tell you what order to.
What's interesting though, because Christina and I, funny enough, have talked about that, like, you know, well, what, not necessarily about watching them in this order, but like, what are your, you know, least favorite and for me, until these sequels and until the Disney purchase, it was still episode order from least to greatest. Like, episode 1 is my least favorite.
Oh, that's fair.
Then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6.
Oh, that's funny.
So
the advantages of watching in this order for me are you get to test out whether or not that's actually true. Because hey, you never know. You might watch episode 6 and then episode 5 and discover, you know what? Episode 5 wasn't a step up for me. I do like episode 6 better.
But you know, that might change depending on your mood that day.
That's true. That's why you have to just...
You do it. You keep track, Ross. You write down after each viewing where their stats are, and you repeat this multiple times, and you'll get a good average.
This is already getting way too scientific for me. You are throwing work into my enjoyment.
Yeah.
Stop it.
But still, it's like either you have an ever escalating and improving experience, or you do not, and you discover that, hey, maybe your preferred viewing order isn't what you thought it was. Cool bean.
I think for me, for that to work, I would have to consistently do it over time and just let it evolve naturally.
And then write it down so that you have hard data.
I would essentially have to just like...
plot it on a graph,
Ross. I would have to look at all of them all at once and be like, which one do I like the least? Okay. And go from there every time. Not that scientific. I gotta relax, guys. And keeping track like that is way too much work.
But for science, Ross, for posterity.
But you do have an order of how much you like them, don't you?
I mean, I could not rattle that off to you confidently right now. But if I were to get them and spend 20 minutes... You know what? I think we need to do a list show.
I want to. Well, I was just gonna ask because I did this in an earlier episode. I want to know what yours is. Give it to us, man.
Dear.
Rattle it off. Rattle.
Wait, so are we starting with worst going to best?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is if Ross were to apply this viewing order, what order would you watch this?
Episode 2 is the worst.
Yes, sir. That is the official stance of
Yes,
this
it
podcast.
is. Yes, it is. Episode 1. And now it gets hard.
That's fair.
Solo.
Yeah, I thought that might be for you.
I think I'd actually go Rogue One next. And then Empire.
Empire, really?
Yeah.
Huh?
Whoa, that far down. That's
It's not for everybody. He's a paladin.
It's not even I don't like the sad endings. It's just that, I don't know, I just never really, well, I guess maybe in the back of my mind I don't like the sad ending, but I don't know.
I love Empire, but if I'm gonna sit down and critically pick it apart, I can inflict some doozies upon
Yeah.
it. So.
Well, because that already puts us halfway through, you know, and it's, I mean, it's very tough after those first two.
Yeah, that's fair.
Then probably
my first 2 would be hard.
A New Hope, and then Jedi, and then
Really?
it's a real toss up between the sequels right now for me.
Wow.
So,
It's like
I mean,
I don't even know you.
I'm really surprised. I didn't think you'd put Last Jedi up that high.
no, I like Last Jedi.
Yeah, I knew you did. I just
Yeah.
didn't think you liked it that much.
Well, I think a lot of it has to comes down to the updating of everyone's story. Because one thing is oh wait a minute, sorry, I haven't said episode 3 yet.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say I've got 3 spots left. Remember which one?
Oof,
Do I get to go next?
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
one have to. Oh, this is tough. This is so hard, guys. I think my top 4 would be interchangeable depending on my mood.
That's legit.
I think that's what I'm gonna have
In
to
mine, I
qualify
just
this
put
with.
that's where the original trilogy goes. Put them in whatever order you want. I don't care.
Yeah. Because if I want like a more gritty, like I want a meat of a story type thing, I think I'd probably put Last Jedi as the top, then Force Awakens, then Return of the Jedi, and then Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
As far as entertainment, like if I just want to watch something cool,
Yeah, just relax.
Episode 3 would probably be my top.
Really?
Just because that ending lightsaber is freaking sweet.
Yeah, it's legit.
All the combat in there is awesome.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And then I'd probably do Force Awakens. Ooh. And then like Jedi, well, both Jedis actually.
Yeah.
Would be interchangeable. So it's real tough. That is highly subjective to my mood at the time.
Absolutely. I
So.
get that. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Kyler.
Wow.
What's your viewing order list if you're watching them from least like to most?
Okay. The worst slot is a very tough call for me between episode 1 and episode 8.
Mm-hmm. You don't even have to call that. Just episode 1 and 8 at the bottom. Flip a coin.
Yeah,
Whatevs.
that's honestly... And this is part of why I was considering the other day, I'm like, I really need to watch episode 8 again. It needs to solidify its place in line.
Have you watched it since our episode on it?
No.
I would be interested to see your thoughts on it
Yeah.
after our episode.
I would probably say, if I gun to my head, I'd probably say episode 8 is on the bottom, simply because episode 1 is the terribleness I'm already familiar with. And have accepted.
That is absolutely. That's the only reason Rogue One's lower than those
Yeah.
for me is because
It's like I've had more time to process the badness of episode 1.
even though I can sit and look at them and go, the writing errors with these are more egregious than the ones in Rogue One, I still don't enjoy Rogue One as much as.
So it would go 8, 1, then probably Solo, then probably 2, and then maybe Rogue One.
Rogue One in the middle there, really?
Well, because I'm trying to think, like, Rogue One has a lot of cool stuff that I enjoy. Actually, you know what? No. 2, then 3, then Rogue One, because again, space battles for me are a huge plus, and Rogue One has way better space battles than Episode 3, although Episode 3 has the best space battles of the prequels. So 8, 1, 2, 1, Solo, 2, 3, Rogue One, then 4, 7, 5, 6.
All right, there we go. So I have to try these out sometime.
Did I finish my thought on why I like the ending of a trilogy better?
No, you didn't. Please don't.
Okay. I like characters best when they're fully developed at the end of the story. I love resolutions, I think is what it is.
That's legit.
Episode 3 is by far my favorite of the prequels.
It's
Return of the
definitely
Jedi
the best.
is by
Yeah.
far my favorite of the original trilogy. And then current Star Wars film is my favorite of the sequels, sort of
that's
thing.
fair.
Although, but again, for these sequels, I don't know, there's something, I just have some draw with Force Awakens that does make 7 and 8, they really fight for me, for which one's my favorite. But
Cool. Wow. I learned things about you guys today. I'm excited.
Yeah.
it's quite the personality test.
Yeah.
And I feel bad putting Solo because it's like, geez, Solo's your third least favorite Star Wars movie. It's like, yes,
Which
but you
isn't
got to
to say I
remember there's a
dislike
pretty
it,
wide
yeah.
chasm between 8 and 1 and Solo for me.
And see, I think for me, I mean, the first two, episodes 1 and 2 being at the bottom was obvious.
Yeah.
Because I like all of the rest of them the best for different reasons. Well, actually, even Solo. I don't even really care about Solo so much. Well, I don't know. There is some cool space stuff. But I mean, if I'm in a particular mood for a lightsaber battle, I'm going to watch episode 3 probably. Or I might even watch Force Awakens because that's a pretty decent one too. If I'm, I don't know. It just depends on what I'm looking for at the time. If I want a really cool space battle in the Civil War era of Star Wars, I'm going to watch Rogue One because that battle at the end is awesome. Seeing HD X-Wings around, and an HD Death Star and all the fighting and in atmosphere, if I wanted to see that, I'm watching Rogue One.
And I've done the same thing too. Even recently, a couple weeks ago, I was like, I feel like a Star Wars movie. What should I watch? This wasn't the Episode 8 consideration. This was before that. And I was like, you know what? I'm in the mood for the Han Leia love story. Episode 5 it is.
Yeah.
That's what I'm in the mood for.
Yeah.
I want to see that kiss. I want to see the I know. That's what I'm in the mood for. Okay. And so I busted that out, But there are other times where I'm like, I want a big clone battle. I'm doing episode 3 because that's just lots of clones shooting lots of droids, and that's what I'm in the mood for. So
I hear you there. Which is actually a great segue into the next viewing order, which was specifically, I'll expand on this, but it was specifically number of lightsaber battles. And in cases where there are the same number of lightsaber battles, you go with the shorter battle first and then move on to the movie with the longer lightsaber battle.
okay.
Which
So
puts
that's a fair
episode
order,
3 as
actually.
the final viewing.
Yes, it does.
But I would also expand this to say you could do this same thing with space battles or just action scenes in general and work your way up.
So lightsabers, Rogue One
and we're
is
not
at the
talking
bottom.
about... No, actually Solo is at the
Solo's at the
bottom. Because while Rogue One doesn't have any lightsaber battles per se, it does have Vader's hallway scene with his lightsaber. And it does have
I forgot about that.
It does
Yeah,
have
you're
Chirrut
right.
imitating lightsaber battles.
You're right. I forgot about the
So
Vader
Solo,
hallway
I would
scene.
say, slots in below
Yeah.
Rogue
How do
One.
you forget about the Vader
I know,
hallway scene?
right?
What?
Because it's entirely superfluous.
Yeah, but it's
But
awesome.
it's cool.
It's really cool looking. No, because I was thinking, I'm like, well, there's no Jedi or Sith in there, so I was like, okay.
But I will say,
there's no...
it's so superfluous
Yeah.
that even people who like it forgot it.
Yeah. So yeah, Solo, then Rogue One, then...
Number of lightsaber battles, we got a couple with... Then Episode 4, because
Yeah.
we've just
There's
got
only
the
the
little...
one.
The
Yeah.
little
Just
one
barely.
fight. And then so we've got one fight apiece, lightsaber... Well, no, we've got 2 in Phantom Menace. I
Yeah.
forgot. So we've got one in... Well, depends on how you define it in Attack of the Clones. You've got one drawn-out lightsaber battle, or you've got 3 short lightsaber battles. I don't know how you want to define that.
3 short ones.
Yeah, you've got Dooku versus Obi-Wan, Dooku versus
Oh,
Anakin.
okay.
and
No,
Dooku
I would say
versus-
that's...
I would
say
I
that's
would
one.
also put that as one. So
It's
Well,
one...
I was gonna say 2. You have Anakin and Obi-Wan, and then Yoda. I feel like that's a separate fight on its own.
Yeah, that's legit.
But so you have 0 in Solo, 1 in Rogue One.
0.1.
Yeah.
We should save this for our
go over this for
lightsaber
our
ranking
lightsaber
episode.
ranking. Sure.
Well, but as
That-
far
that's
as
what I wanted to.
as far as
specify
the
that we don't
viewing
wanna get into
order
that.
would go, I mean, because we're gonna do awesome,
Yeah.
at the other
Yeah,
parts.
I
of
was
that
not
other
doing it
episode.
by quality of these,
Yeah.
just by number.
Because I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember just off the top of my head. See if I can do
Episode
this.
3 is going to be number 1. Episode 2 is going to be number 2, I think.
No. Well, actually, if we do it by number, because
Yeah, we're
Force
doing
Awakens
it by
has
number.
Remember,
Force Awakens has one. Last
It's got
Jedi
the
has
arena
one.
scene in episode 2.
Oh, that's true.
That's a
confuses
lot
things.
of lightsabers.
I would kind of want to consider that as one fight, though, if we did just by
Yeah,
number of
no, I'm
fight.
not saying each individual Jedi is its own duel,
Yeah,
but I'm just
yeah.
saying
It would still
there's a
be
lot
one
of
more.
minutes of lightsabers cutting
That's
things,
very true.
Yes, and blocking things and
beheading things.
beheading things,
Yeah, you know what? We usually
making
just
little
have
boys
one.
into orphans.
We usually just have one fight per episode, don't we?
Yeah,
Except
that
for
was the
prequels.
standard until episode 2 and 3 came along, and really until episode 3 came along and was like, no. Here,
Yeah.
have Anakin and Obi-Wan versus Dooku at the beginning. Here's Grievous, 4 ridiculous lightsabers.
Yeah.
And then here's Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting each
With
other.
a sprinkling of
As
random
well as,
Jedi
random
throughout
other
doing
stuff
things.
throughout, yeah.
Yeah.
So 3, 2, and then if we're with and then 1 with its 2 with Qui-Gon versus Maul in the desert, and then Qui-Gon versus Maul, and then episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8 all have 1 lightsaber apiece. Probably the longest of those would be episode 8's fight, would think. Though episode 7's is no slack.
With the Power Rangers?
I think
with the Power Rangers.
I think 7's might be longer. Well, actually, it depends on if you want to quantify Finn as a separate one from Rey.
Oh,
no, I would
forgot
say
about
that's
Finn.
the same.
It's not separate. I would put it the same, but that would definitely tip it over.
But that would tip it over the...
So 7,
length.
and then 8, and then probably 5, and then 6. If we're this, it was obviously reverse order, shortest to longest. But
Yeah, I think so. That sounds about right.
yeah, ha! Try and correct us on this, Steven. I bet you don't know this off the top of your head. Well, Steven's gonna link us to a webpage he already has bookmarked. It's like,
for reals.
here's a list of lightsaber fights by length.
Steven, you didn't know what you were getting into when you declared yourself our unofficial fact checker.
I believe you
we're putting you to work.
Unofficial fact
Oh,
checker.
he's accepted it. He himself
I know,
has
but-
referred to himself as that.
So that's, and then you can do a similar thing for space battles, or just number of action scenes in general, including both space battles and this and that and all the other.
Space battles, I think Rogue One would be the longest because it's about a half an hour of.
Oh yeah, it's.
But you know what?
Well, but most of that is not actually space battle.
Oh, that's true.
But A New Hope is actually similar with its space battle around the Death Star. It actually is a significant amount of time.
Yeah.
Of that
And
movie.
and Return of the Jedi has a good chunk of it too.
Oh yeah, Return of the Jedi. But I think.
And well, no, I wouldn't. That sequence at the beginning of 3 is not. It's expansive, but it's not long because they eventually ship and then it shifts from being a space. Although, do we count the crashing of the Invisible Hand as part of a space battle, or is that different?
I feel like you should define it as the ships countering ships.
Dogfights.
Not even dogfights, but even like the capital ships versus each other.
No, I would say once the Invisible Hand has begun its descent, the space fight for the movie purposes is over. So,
Okay.
Well, because it's effectively leaving that battle.
yeah.
So
Well, and you don't see any more. Like, once it starts its descent into the atmosphere, you don't see any more of the space battle.
Yeah.
Like, you're done with the space battle. You're moving on.
and even at the time that it's descending, it's not even getting shot at. So.
Yeah.
All right. So after that particular order, we also have length. You either watch them from shortest movie to longest movie, or longest movie to shortest movie, whatever you prefer. If you have a chunk of time now and you're not sure how much time you'll have in the future, watch them from longest to shortest so that you know that it'll take less time with each successive one.
I like this viewing
But if you
order.
want to just dip your toes in a little bit and then work your way up, you start with the shortest one and work your way up to the longest one.
Okay, hold on, Steven. I expect a full report of all of these rankings by our next published. Okay?
Yeah.
I just want to see him do it. I
The
feel like he
advantage
might.
of this one is just that you can plan it out with your schedule a little better because you know that, okay, next time I have to have slightly more time than last time. Yeah, and since you're going to have to look at all the times of the movies in order to know which one is longest, you can easily slot it into, oh, okay, I've got this much time, etc., etc.
The other order, of course, is to follow the Force and let the Force guide you to whichever movie you feel like at the time.
Oh, we're going to get to that.
Oh.
Yeah. So the next order after this is by amount of Obi-Wan snark.
Ooh. Oh, yeah, I'm down with this
Yeah,
order.
okay. So this obviously puts all the Disney movies first since we don't have any Obi-Wan in any of them,
Yeah.
sadly.
Sadly.
In this case, you can substitute with General Snark, which would mainly be Poe Dameron.
General Snark.
General Snark. Which would mainly be Poe Dameron. But you get some Luke in episode 8. He gets pretty snarky. And but then eventually you'd work your way to 5 and 6, where you've got Ghosty Wan. You'd have Obi-Wan in episode 4. Isn't terribly snark, I'd say. Episode 1, Obi-Wan, not too bad. Episode 2's better. Episode 3, is he more snarky in 3? I think no.
Yeah, he's
that
more
would put-
snarky
Yeah.
in 3,
Okay,
for sure.
and then Clone Wars, because Clone Wars is where we get most of the Obi snark.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
we do.
And that way you just know that each one you're going to have more Obi-Wan snark, and that's great.
Yep. No complaints there.
Yeah.
Consider that official podcast approval right there.
So next order is a difficult one. This is one that you're going to have to take some time, put some real thought into, maybe make some spreadsheets. It is in order of sexiness.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So, Poe Dameron's...
General sexiness of the entire movie.
Ooh.
That's up to you to figure out. I cannot tell you how sexy which movie is.
That is a very personal list, Chris.
It is very.
It's very personal.
And it's very tricky. So we all know Kyler's going to end with the Poe Dameron movies, of course.
But like sexiness
Kyler's
for
wife
the
is gonna end with
actors?
Rogue One. Whatever.
Because those Star Destroyers crashing into each other in Rogue One is pretty sexy.
We're talking about legitimate sexuality attractiveness.
Okay, so that's what I mean. Is like characters, not like sexy
basically,
moments.
how much
you
do
know?
I want to watch this person make some delightful expressions?
Okay.
And move that delightful
We're going to
body.
take bets on how much of this is going to stay. Depends on...
This is definitely not going in now. I said...
Just cut that part. It's okay. The rest of this is fine.
What is happening with this episode?
I demand absurdity.
We were so serious at the
thing.
start. Oh my heavens. Listeners, you'll never hear this, but I wish you could. It was silly.
Yeah. So next viewing order is number of planets visited. Just so that you start with some a bit more mundane as far as the spectacle goes. And
So
then you
I think
vary it up
probably
as we go.
episode 4 is at the bottom because you are on Tatooine
And on the Death Star.
and Death
on
Star
Yavin.
and then Yavin, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Then probably Solo.
Well,
Solo visits.
Or no,
a couple.
episode.
Solo's got
We
several.
don't need to go
No,
through all of them
episode
right now,
1.
but I think
might-
those early ones are pretty low. Our top ones are probably going to be Rogue
episode
One
2, episode 3,
and
because
Rogue
that's the
One,
Clone
courtesy
Wars. You're
of its
going
hopping
everywhere.
around at the beginning.
Yeah, Rogue One. Yeah, there's like 7.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of planets.
And what you get from this is really nothing.
Yep.
It's just there.
It's a quick trivia of our knowledge of random pieces of information for
Absolutely.
the movies. Okay, quick, Kyler. How many planets do they visit in every movie? Rank them. Give me a minute. I can get there.
Okay, so next viewing order after this one is dice rolling. You get yourself out a D10.
Oh, I thought you were saying like amount of dice rolling occurring.
Oh,
I'm
no,
like,
no.
I'm pretty sure episode 1 and then everything else comes after.
No. Canto Bite.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure
okay.
there's dice
So
in
episode 8,
Canto
then
Bite.
episode 1, then everything else.
Yeah. No, I meant get a D10. Assign a numerical number to each of these
Episode
1 through
order
10.
and then
yeah, sure. Episode
Rogue One and
in
Solo.
the order
Sure.
they were made, I guess. Or or
Yeah.
whatever you want. It doesn't really matter here because it's all random. Roll a D10. Watch that movie. Scratch that off the list. Roll a D10. If you roll the same number, ignore it. And then once you're down to 8, you can renumber and do a D8 and so on. Unless you are one of those weirdos who has the odd numbered dice laying around.
They're so weird.
I want some. Yeah, I've got a D3, but that's about it. Yeah, I've got a couple D3s actually.
Nice.
It's fun.
I'm thinking of
little
3D
jelly.
printing a D1.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, what?
Is it a
Ross?
Mobius strip?
It is a Mobius strip. It is. Well
I'm
done.
so glad I got
Well done, yeah. A Mobius strip is a one-sided
Yeah.
surface. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
One-sided
Yeah,
object.
yeah, I know. All right.
That's,
That's fantastic, Ross.
Yeah.
that's awesome.
If I get a 1, I succeed. Flip.
Zero. Dang it, it's caught on an edge. All right. So the advantage of this is it's random. You never know what you're going to get. It could be fun. You could learn new things. You could find things to juxtapose and be like, oh, hey, look at that. That's neat. No, that's cool. Just could be fun. I like randomity. Randomity is often a lot of fun. So, next time you're reading a book or a television show, just start rolling at random and watch those episodes in whatever order
Oh.
comes up.
I would explode. I couldn't do that. Oh,
I wouldn't do that with anything. Like, I can't think of anything that I like enough to, as far as TV shows. Just watch
like if
in
you
a
were going to
random
just
order,
watch
like-
one, okay. Like I feel like watching episode 5 today. Okay, I'm gonna pick
Yeah,
that.
sure.
But to be like, I'm gonna watch 4 episodes of Frasier. We're gonna roll the dice to see which season and episode these 4 episodes are.
Well, with some shows that could work all right. It doesn't matter what order you watch Phineas and Ferb in.
That's
You'll be
true.
fine.
Yeah.
For the most part. There are some that reference early stuff, and you'll miss some of that. But that's okay. If you've already watched it through
Phineas
once,
and Ferb
like
is
I have.
amazing, and we highly recommend watching it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Endorsed by a More Civilized podcast.
Also, because who did Perry's voice?
D. Bradley Baker.
D. Bradley Baker, that's right, who is the voice of all of the clones.
That's right.
So-
That's right. Also, Phineas and Ferb has a Star Wars episode. It's not
Yes, it's really quite good, actually.
bad. So hey, ties in. It's owned by Disney. It has a Star Wars episode. It'll probably be on Disney Plus. So when you go get The Mandalorian, when you go get a Disney Plus account to watch The Mandalorian, because you
Let's be
listen
real,
to
that's
this
why you're
show,
doing
so
it.
you will
Yeah.
do that. When you do that, if you haven't watched Phineas and Ferb, then take the time. It's awesome.
I think we're done.
No, we're not.
Oh.
I still have a few more orders.
Oh my gosh.
All right. The next order is you can pick any category to do this in, but you want to just pick droids or creatures from Creature Feature or types of aliens, and you want to go in order of the number of those that show up on screen at any point in the movie. And the advantage you get with this one is that it takes the fun out of it. So if you're one of those people that, plays business management video games where it's basically, hey, here, you have to manage this category and you have to manage this, real-time strategy games, but way worse. The ones where it's like, oh yeah, this video game is like my job, only it's more work. If you're one of those people, this is the viewing order for you. Any of these, pick a random quality of that movie and figure out how many are in each of them. You'll probably need some spreadsheets and or the help of a wiki. Or you might have to watch them in one of these other orders while keeping track of everything,
Yes.
tallying up, so that you can then watch them in the proper viewing order of escalating number of Rhodians or something.
Escalating number of Rhodians. Okay, so I don't
Nope,
think there are
doesn't-
any in Rogue One.
I think we only actually see 3 in the entire series.
Yeah, you don't know.
Or 4.
I'd go with something more general like droids, but, whatevs.
Whatever random metric floats your boat.
Yes. So the next order is similar to the random viewing order, but it is the random people viewing order. So go up to a stranger on the street, ask them which Star Wars movie you should watch, and then go watch that one. The problem with this one is you're going to get a lot of
We get
repeats.
a lot of repeats.
But, well, there's no advantage to it. But it's an order. It is an order.
Yes, it is.
And it makes it almost as much sense as Machete Order, so
Yeah.
Zing.
I do that. Okay, yeah, I'm literally making these up off the top of my head at this point.
Well done, though.
Thanks.
I mean,
Thanks. I've actually, half of those were off the top of my head.
I really like the ascending order of sexiness.
All right,
pretty-
that was fun. That one was off the top. I was like, oh, how could he not do this?
Ooh. So are you done?
Yeah, I think I'm done. I got
I
it.
think you'd finished.
I mean, let's be honest. Give him a minute. He'll probably think of a few more. We should probably just end before he gets to that
Yeah,
point.
that's a good idea.
That's
That
fair.
really is a good idea.
Well, in that case, let's go ahead and Kelsey, go ahead and follow along. Let's get.
Wait. I got one more.
Oh,
See?
we weren't fast. Curse my metal body! I wasn't fast enough.
No, this one is in ascending order of Easter eggs. So you start with the one that has the least references to other Star Wars movies, which is, of course, A New Hope.
Yeah.
And then you escalate to, and this is specifically Easter eggs. So this is references that don't need to be there. So this isn't like Episode 5 references Episode 4 because it comes after Episode 4 and therefore, of necessity, will reference it. This is random stuff that we've hidden in here that's like, oh, hey, look, in the background of here you can see this. Or, it's like, here, you can see the ghost in Rogue One. And that. So ascending number of Easter eggs. So the further you get in, the more random references
other
you're
Star
gonna-
Wars movies.
To other Star Wars movies. If you want to really expand your horizons, you can include references to anything else, like the Indiana Jones stuff in Solo.
Because
et
then
cetera, et
Solo
cetera.
would win.
Yeah, Rogue One could give it a run for its money, though.
Yeah. In fact, I bet Rogue One would probably be the most because I can't think of any in the original series.
Yeah.
Yeah, the original series was above this because it had doing this. but-
Alrighty.
It also had no opportunity to be. really,
Exactly,
so.
well.
If you'd like to follow us on Twitter,
Just jumping right in.
you can do so at More Civilized. And you should definitely join our Facebook group, A More Civilized Podcast.
Where you can find such things as this week's shout out which goes to Kelsey Hatch.
Smooth.
I know, right? I
was.
think I like that transition.
Dang, that
I'll
was so good.
I'll try and remember to keep that one.
It was really
I'm sure
smooth
I'll
until
forget
I
it by next
interrupted
time.
you. But
Yeah,
I
it's
have
fine.
to praise that.
It's fine. Because again, I could cut this out if I felt like it.
Well,
You don't know.
Unlimited power.
That's right. Like I was saying, this week's shout out goes to our listener, Kelsey Hatch, who took a page out of Lindsay's book and made us a meme
Ah, that's right. Yeah.
for the midi-chlorian what?
Oh, really?
Didn't you see it? Oh, go to the Facebook.
Oh,
go to the Facebook and
man.
watch it. She made it herself. It was adorable. I liked it a lot. So, thank you, Kelsey. Thank you. Also, If you'd like to speak with me on Twitter.
I got another order.
Stop it!
No. This is the best order. This is the best order.
Ascending order of midichlorians Watts on this show?
You need a friend to help you with this one. So this order, you and your friend each pick a Star Wars movie to watch. If you agree, congratulations, go watch it together and enjoy. If you disagree, you fight. You can use lightsabers if you want, but I prefer something that is potentially bloody. Get
Depends
yourself,
on how you use the lightsaber.
demarcate a zone for fighting and just go at it, pummel each other until someone gives in and admits defeat.
Kelsey, that
And
midichlorians Watts is fantastic. I just saw it. That's incredible.
But obviously the Victor's movie is superior, and therefore that is the one you should watch.
There we go.
It is the manifest destiny of viewing. It's kind of the trial by combat.
Yeah.
If we need to know which one, so there we go. Trial by combat viewing order.
Okay, Chris, you're done.
Endorsed.
You can speak with me on Twitter at Mr_Rockstar. Chris, go do your outro.
I was gonna say we should punish Chris by not giving him an outro.
Oh, but it's for my wife. Yeah, I'm gonna pitch
that's
Anxiousness Webtoons, my wife's webcomic. You've probably heard me mention it already if you've been listening, and if you haven't, hey, welcome. Go back and listen to the other episodes.
Yep.
And so that, yeah.
It is good. I've read a couple. Go ahead and read it.
There
It's
are
good.
only a couple to read so far, but there
Yep.
will be more by the time this is on. So
Yep.
she's doing one a week, and I'm really proud of her. I think it's awesome. So
Yep.
it's about living with anxiety and how you deal with that. So it's cool stuff. If you have any ideas for us to discuss, if you have any viewing orders that we missed, let us know.
I would be interested in other viewing orders.
Yeah, I feel like I've been pretty thorough, but hey, who knows?
Oh no.
Ooh, the alternating order. You need episode 9 to be done for this one, but then you watch episode
You do
1.
like the first one of each.
Yeah,
trilogy,
episode 1,
then the
episode
second?
4, episode 7, episode 2, episode 5, episode 8, and then episode 3, episode 6, episode 9. So you get a lot of beginning, a lot of middle, and a lot of end.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, let us know what you want to hear about, and we'll discuss it on here, quite possibly.
All right, listeners. Until next time. May the force be-
Wait! No. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. I think I broke
you scared
Kyler.
him. I think you scared him.
May the force be with you.
Always.
I'm Anna Graves, and thank you for listening to a more civilized podcast.
That's our best outro
Disney fully
My
embraces
response,
child
of
murder.
course, was that. Yeah. We can talk about whatever we want on here. I stuck listening. No, don't turn it off, please. Stop. So I can do what I want. And, only this, heathens.
Episode 2 is the worst.
Yes, sir. That is the official stance of
Yes,
this
it is.
podcast.
Yes, it is.
I don't love you anymore.
That's why I'm glad there was silence before and after that, because that'll cut out real clean.